Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey. On today's show, we're taking you through the Cowboys depth chart on offense. Now, last year, this was a top 5 offense for the Dallas Cowboys, and no surprise, there are very similar goals in 2020. Now, Travis Frederick retires, Randall Cobb leaves, but the Cowboys also use their first-round pick on CeeDee Lamb, who could instantly become one of the best first-year players in the NFL. Now, there are still some concerns on the offensive line, tight end depth that we'll dive into, but we'll go position by position on offense, beginning with the quarterback spot, the most important spot on the field. Dak Prescott is still the guy, despite what some of the talking heads might try to sell you on. Dalton is the backup, then a potential battle between Ben DiNucci and Clayton Thorson. I think that DiNucci has the advantage there to be quarterback 3 if the Cowboys keep one on the active roster or just on the practice squad. Now, the reality is that Dak played really well last year. Was he perfect? No, he wasn't. That's a big reason why the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. Well, of course, defense and special teams too, which we'll get into later on in an upcoming video. But Dak was great for the Cowboys. He made a ton of plays for the offense, and that's critical for the Cowboys to sustain their success on the offensive side of the ball. But unlike last year, the Cowboys actually have competent quarterback play behind Dak Prescott. Is Dalton a franchise guy? Absolutely not. Is he anywhere near as good as Dak? No, not really. But if Dak does go down, could Dalton step up and actually help the Cowboys go maybe around 500 in a 4 to 6 game window and not tank the season? Yes. And that's why getting Dalton on a 1-year, $3 million deal was a brilliant move by the Cowboys front office. Now, we know that less than 19% of you guys don't actually have all of your notifications turned on. You might have it on personalized instead of all, which means you will miss out on some videos. That's just the nature of how YouTube works. So if you don't want to miss a single thing, make sure those notifications are set to all. Click that bell. As a little teaser of what we have coming up for you guys in a little bit. Thursday, our live show. You don't want to miss that one. Saturday, we'll have a little breakout players video for you. Next Wednesday, a week from now, we'll break down the defensive depth chart for the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, weekly rumors and news. So if you don't want to miss anything on the Cowboys Report, make sure your notifications are set to all. Let's go now to the running back position. Got a pretty darn good top 2, right? Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard were both awesome for the Cowboys. Zeke, of course, in more of a featured role. Pollard, well, when he was used, he played pretty darn well. I'll also make note of Jamize Olawale, who is the fullback. I think he keeps his job. Maybe he'll be pushed by UDFA that we'll get into here in a little bit. Now, Zeke, in reality, wasn't as good as he was back in 2018. That's okay. That's what happens. That doesn't mean Zeke was bad by any means. In fact, as the year went on, you started to see Elliott get back into the really good form that we've seen from the past. So here's my over-under for Elliott for this upcoming season. Is he going to surpass 1,430 yards in 2020? I intentionally picked that number because that's the proper over-under. He's got below it twice and over it twice as well. So Year 5, what does it end up looking like? So put it in the comment section for me. And I'll make this the pinned comment too. O for over, U for under, 1,430 yards on the ground for Zeke Elliott. Let's go now to Tony Pollard, who efficiency-wise was actually even better than Zeke Elliott, which is the nature of having a smaller sample size. Efficiency drops the more volume that you get. But Pollard could and should be used more frequently than what he was last year. It was frustrating to see Pollard at various points in the year suddenly just disappear from the game plan. He'd go from being involved with maybe 5 to 6 touches to suddenly not even being active participant whatsoever. That has to change. The consistency of using Pollard, who can be a weapon for you in the run game and the passing game, has to be a key part of what Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy are going to do in 2020. Now, of course, Jordan Chung was also on the roster, but there were some UDFAs the Cowboys picked up, and I'd wonder if one of Darius Anderson or Rico Dowdle could actually push Chung, if not off the roster, off the practice squad as well. I think both of them might be better options. And then Shewa Olanalua, the fullback, who's a running back at TCU. I like him as a fullback. I don't know if it's this year, but maybe next year. I could see Shewa replacing Olawale as the team's kind of fullback, athletic, linebacker almost type special team guy in terms of playing the linebacker role, really just tackling guys on special teams. I think he fits that role pretty well. I'm curious to see if the Cowboys feel a similar way. Not quite at the same level of, Keith Smith playing fullback after literally being a linebacker earlier in his NFL career. Now, I hope everyone out there is staying safe because we need the sports to return. Now, there is a line right now to get these Cowboys face masks. It's growing every day, so if you want one, get in while you can. chatsports.com/CowboysMask. And don't worry, I'll put the link in the comment section and the description. That's chatsports.com/CowboysMask. I've got individual ones and a 3-pack also on sale. Again, please stay safe out there, and you can also rep your favorite team in the process. On now to wide receiver. This one's fun. You got I still think the best trio in the NFL. And Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, my number one receiver, the Cowboys' number one receiver in the NFL draft as well, CeeDee Lamb playing your number 3 receiver role. That's awesome. Where things get tricky is behind them, but let's focus on the top players right now. Cooper and Gallup emerge as a dynamic duo at receiver, despite having some issues. Cooper kind of faded down the stretch. Michael Gallup did a bit of a drop issue last year. They still played really well, but there are, and should of course be, room for improvement out of both of those players. But if you got 2 receivers going over 1,000 yards, you did something right on offense, and that was the case last year for the Cowboys. I expect more of the same in 2020. I'm super excited to see what role CeeDee Lamb plays both early in the year and as the season goes along. I don't anticipate Lamb becoming a top 2 receiver for the Cowboys in Week 1. But I do think you will see an uptick in targets for Lamb, much in the same way you saw Michael Gallup steadily grow with Dak Prescott. So many of you wanted an instant impact out of Gallup. Took him a little bit longer. I think Lamb's ramp-up time will be a little bit shorter because, A, there's better receivers on the roster, but I think he will become an impact player for the Cowboys. Maybe not Week 1, but certainly by the end of the season. But the depth. That's the tricky part right now for the Cowboys at wide receiver. Ideally, those big 3, Lamb, Gallup, and Cooper, well, they play something ridiculous like 90% of your snaps overall in terms of those receivers. But they will need a breather. There could be injuries. So who's the top backup? Cedric Wilson didn't play last year, but he was drafted. Devin Smith offers you speed vertically. Noah Brown is a nice blocker, but hasn't done a whole lot in terms of actually being a receiver. Ventel Bryant was mostly special teams. And everyone's pet cat last year, John V. Johnson, we'll see what he actually brings this year. So who should be wide receiver number 4 for the Dallas Cowboys? We went through some of the top 5 options there. Some UDFA is coming up. Much can, and I think will, change in what should really be a merit-based battle at the backup wide receiver spot. I think I might roll with Cedric Wilson, though, for the time being. Now, there are some more UDFAs at receiver once again coming in. The Cowboys tracker at receiver for UDFAs, pretty darn good. Kendrick Rogers has the best highlight reel. Stephen Guidry offers an intriguing blend of some size and speed. Aaron Parker was the most productive, but he also has a pretty steep jump in competition coming. I think those 3 guys are probably more likely to be practice squad options for the Cowboys this upcoming season. Over to tight end now, where you got Blake Jarwin as your number 1 guy. We'll get to the depth here in a little bit. But Jarwin is primed for a breakout year. Jason Witten is no longer there to steal tight end snaps away from Jarwin. He wasn't used enough. When he was used, it was good. He was productive. He made plays for the Dallas Cowboys. That's a big deal. You want a tight end who maybe isn't going to be 1,000-yard, Zach Ertz, George Kittle, Travis Kelce type of player, but he can be a very reliable option for you and offers more vertically over the middle of the field than Witten has offered for quite a while, quite frankly. Now, where things get tricky is at the backup spot. Dalton Schultz and Blake Bell are the top 2 contenders. Maybe Sean McEwen can make a run there, or Cole Hicatini as well. I think it comes down to Schultz or Bell. I think the Cowboys want that number 2 tight end to be a blocker. Schultz has not offered you much in the passing game, but I will lean more towards S here than Bell when it comes to figuring out who ends up being that number 2 tight end. Over now to the offensive line. A whole lot of stuff to discuss, so we'll take our good old sweet time here. Let's start with the super positives, right? Tyron Smith continues to be a top-end offensive lineman. I know there are the penalties for holdings, which half the time are just outright bad calls because he's just so massive out there. The hurries have gone up, but I think he's allowed 1 or 2 sacks the past 2 years. That matters. Zack Martin continues to be arguably the best offensive lineman in the entire NFL, and to help out the Cowboys, La'el Collins had a breakout year at right tackle. They gave him some stability, and it worked out really, really well for them. That trio is one of the best in the NFL in terms of picking out 3 offensive linemen on a roster. That matters in the end for the Cowboys, and that's a big reason why the offense has had success. There are a lot of reasons why, of course. But who is the best offensive lineman on the Dallas Cowboys? Is it Collins? Is it Martin? Is it Tyron Smith? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. It's not much of a surprise pick, but I'm still going to roll with Zack Martin in terms of those 2 options. Now, another question for you here focuses on a potential position battle at left guard. Connor McGovern, Connor Williams. The Connors battling for a role and a starting role. I think Williams is the favorite if he recovers in time from injury. That does open the door to McGovern at least pushing Williams for that left guard role. So cast your votes in the comments. M for McGovern, W for Williams. And now to the other potential battle, center. And I think McGovern could also compete there. Maybe that's the most likely path for McGovern if Williams is a bit ahead of schedule by the time we get to camp in the preseason. Looney's back on a 1-year deal. The Cowboys used the vet exception newly added rule in the NFL CBA to pay Looney more. Well, I didn't count that much against the cap. When Frederick was out, Looney fared well. He wasn't great. He's certainly not a Travis Frederick heir because he's an older player as well. But he was serviceable, and that's what the Cowboys needed. But they did not stop at just Looney or McGovern. They also moved up in the draft to get Tyler Biadasz out of Wisconsin. Now, for now, I think Looney is your starter. If Biadasz impresses in camp, which is possible, or as the season goes along, he's going to have a chance. So for week 1, that's the premise of this question. Who starts at center? Earlier this offseason, maybe it's going to be McGovern. Then they draft Biadasz. Then Williams, again, has to go through his rehab process. I'm going to lean more towards Looney right now. But any combination or I guess any pick of Looney, McGovern, or Biadasz, I think is a fair one when it comes to the center spot. Some other players I wanted to mention here. We won't go into every single one. I like Brandon Knight at left tackle and right tackle. Cam Irving is also on this roster right now as a potential option to be a swing guy. I'm curious if Adam Redmond makes the roster. Mitch Hyatt, Terrence Steele could be practice squad guys. Cody Wichmann has kind of hung around the team for a little bit. That's too many guys. There will have to be decisions made on the offensive line when it comes down to potential cuts because the Cowboys, you can't carry anything more than 10, and you probably got more than 10 guys worthy of making the team. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.